Hello and welcome to the 4th Ramsgate International Film and Television Festival, which, due to the pandemic, we have had to move online. But the silver lining to this migration is that the audiences around the world are going to be able to see the creme de la creme of independent cinema. And today, I'm really thrilled to be joined by the filmmaker and two of the actors from the wonderful film, The Silence After Life. So, hello, Daniel Thomas Freeman.
Hi there.
Actor Emma Spearing.
Hi.
And actor Sally Mortemore. So thank you so much for joining us today. I thought I'd start off with you, Daniel, put you in the hot seat and just ask you a little. This is your first feature film. So first of all, big congratulations. That's a major achievement.
Thank you very much.
What was the inspiration behind the film? And could you tell us a little bit about the film?
The inspiration really came out of, I was very fortunate to be the co-writer of the music to a film 4 feature called Catch Me Daddy. And I had such a brilliant experience with that, that it rekindled a long-term dream of mine from going back to when I was 13, when I was a kid, of making films. And when I was 13, I was far too shy and unconfident to do it myself at that point. But by now, I'd worked with lots of musicians, so I'm a musician by my sort of artist configuration, if you like. And it came out of that. And then what really started it as a full idea was meeting Sally. So I met her through a music/theatre project, got to know her, and then it all became possible. It was like I knew an actor, I'd seen the film process, I knew I could make the music, I knew I could edit. That's where it really came from. That's the starting point. And then the actual subject of the film just came out of life experience, really. Some out of Sally's own life, actually, just being around her and seeing some things that had happened to her, but also sort of digging into. So I lost my mum 20 years ago. And it was sort of reflecting on the grief of that and how things had changed after that, how my experience of spirituality had come into that. Yeah, so that all sort of got thrown into the pot, and eventually a film came out of it.
And so, Sally, could you talk a bit about how you guys first met and what it was like? And did you sort of workshop this together, or was it sort of, how did your relationship develop?
Well, I met Dan, as he said, on another project called The Lie Box, which was working with a cellist as well called Maida Navi. And Dan did the music for it, and I was the character in it. And we just got chatting, and Dan said that he'd always wanted to make a feature film. And then he presented me with a script quite a few months later, and we met in the cemetery, actually, just around the corner from where I live. Yeah. And we had a picnic in the cemetery and talked about the film. And yeah, that was it, really.
Because your background includes, films like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and Game of Thrones. So it's quite a difference. And I wondered, do you have a preference to work on something really small and intimate? And do you have a preference for theatre over film or TV? Or is it purely a sort of project by project that you decide on what the project is bringing to you and how you as an actor approach it?
It's project by project. I've done an awful lot of theatre. And I was always very careful in my choices of the theatre that I've done. I've done a lot of physical theatre as well, because I initially trained as a classical dancer. And then I went to drama school at 17, and the rest is history, really. And I went straight into the theatre and did loads and loads of stuff. The big stuff like Game of Thrones and Harry Potter, that just came my way. I would have chosen to do Harry. It was an extraordinary project. Game of Thrones was extraordinary too. The Silence After Life is something so intimate, and it is an extraordinary film, I think, with some beautiful shots. And I'm silent through most of it, which I actually enjoy. I really enjoy being silent and letting everything internalize, all the emotions being internalized. And yeah, I enjoy doing alternative stuff, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, now that you've said about your physical dance background, it makes perfect sense, because so much of your portrayal is physical.
That's very true, yes. Sadly, my physical theatre now probably has come to an end, because I had my leg smashed just before lockdown. So I don't know if I will get my complete physicality back with it ever again. So doing something like this, I will be able to do this because it's on film, and anything that I can't actually achieve with my leg can be cut. So.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That's, especially after lockdown, that must be made it all the more worse.
Yeah, it was difficult. I have to say it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, I think. But as an actor, you use everything that you go through. So at some point.
That leads me actually on to talk to you, Emma, because I was on your website earlier and I read about your project that you're doing called Whole. And that also plays very beautifully into the film and your experiences. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about that as well.
Yes, I think really when Sally contacted me about the film and whether or not would I be interested in working with her and Dan and actually I was at Glastonbury at the time and I was like, yes, I'd love to work with you again, Sally, because we worked together in theatre and it was wonderful. And she's a wonderful actress. So when I saw the script and I saw that it was exploring the themes of grief and loss and how you move through that, I just thought this is sort of a role that I want to take, because it's as an artist. I mean, as an artist, really, I'm actually trying to spend a lot of my time now exploring things that feel like they need to have a voice for the public. Just because I think you can do a lot of work as an actor, and it doesn't feel like it can feel a bit frivolous sometimes. And I actually want to sort of create the show I'm creating is talking about loss and talking about grief, and it's about being responsible for the narrative of that and being very honest with that. And I feel like the film that we did reflects so much of that. My character is going through a loss, which I totally bring all my stuff in when I work, and the relationship also with Sally in the piece. My experience when I lost my identical twin sister was that actually I was surrounded by a group of women that came to help me care for her, who were her friends, and there was this very beautiful, intimate dance through this incredibly traumatic time, but it made it better because no one was trying to fix anybody. You can't fix somebody that's going through grief, but you can walk next to them. And I think that's what this film really shows. I think that nature is incredibly restorative, and the film has so many beautiful, beautiful landscapes in it, and actually silence. You don't have to fix anyone that's grieving. You just need to be there. That's that's it. And the work that I'm doing, which is Arts Council funded, which is fantastic, is trying to take my story and look at that, look at grief and how we move forwards from that. So yeah.
Well, good luck with that. I look forward to maybe seeing it on stage, or who knows. And I'd like to go back to you, Daniel, and talk about, you mentioned you're a musician and you've been in a band, and I wondered, how did that compare when you launched yourself into the role of filmmaking?
Well, it gave me the confidence to actually do it, because when you work with musicians, you're working with performers. So when you're making a film, you're also working with performers. So that whole thing of trying to look after people, trying to make sure they've got room to do what they do best, given room to play, all of that comes in. And so although they're very different in in the final result, the actual process is reasonably similar. And it also comes into the editing as well. So you know that when you're seeing somebody perform, that it doesn't have to be right all the way through. What you're looking for is those special moments that will actually speak truth, which you can then pull out and enhance and make every performance shine as much as possible, every moment shine as much as possible. So that's where the analogy comes in, I think.
And were you thinking about the music as you were making the film, or were you sort of putting that all the way on the back burner because you had so much on your plate to make the movie?
I made the conscious decision, because I knew I could score a film because I'd done it before, and I've made music for 30 years. I wasn't really so worried about the music. I knew it would be a challenge when I got to it. So I would write scenes knowing that they would have music in them, or likely to have music in them, and that would help dictate how the scene was played out. So there are lots of scenes which are silent for in terms of dialogue, but there's a lot of music there, and we shot them like that. But I did the music right at the end, so I did it once all the editing had been done. So I edited it without music at all, not even any sort of temp track, because I wanted to make sure the film was as strong as possible, the performances were as strong as possible before we put the music on, knowing that the music would elevate it yet further. But I didn't want to have to rely on the music. I wanted to make sure we had something really, really focused and intense and as truthful as we could get it before all the music came on.
And this is sort of a general question, so whoever wants to dive in, but I think I read that you did a sort of workshop beforehand and made a small film as a sort of taster or tester. Is that how it worked? And how did that kind of then reflect on the final film?
Well, I can start, and maybe the others could chip in. So we actually made a short film called Poultice with one of our other main supporting actor, Lucy. And that was a pure test, really, as much as anything else. It was, okay, let's use the flat as the set. Let's use local wood as another set. And that was it. Those were all our sets. It was just, can we make this thing called a film? And it was really only that, and to sort of try the whole process out. Once I knew that worked, and Lucy was really kind and patient with us to let us do that, because, we'd never made a film before. She'd never made a film before. So it was very much an experiment. Once we had that, then I knew, okay, it's time to get the others involved. Let's do a second short. And we shot that, although we never actually completed it. We shot all the scenes, but it was really just an extended rehearsal, if you like. And it was a chance to get all the main actors to interact with each other, know what we were doing, how we were going to do it, try and figure out some of the technical challenges, figure out where things are going to go wrong, stuff like that. So how about you, Sally? How did the second short work for you?
It worked well. It gave me an idea of what you wanted, and also made me see that, because you did absolutely everything. I mean, camera, lighting, sound. It's extraordinary what you've done, Dan, and it showed me that you could do that, and it's truly amazing, actually, what you've done.
Thank you. I would say we had to fix a lot of things afterwards. So there's a lot of glue and sellotape on, in terms of the cinematography and the sound. But thank you, yes.
But you did it. You did it.
Yeah.
Well, again, Sally and Emma, I was wondering, because the scenes of you together are so profound and so moving. And I was thinking, as you were shooting this, of course, I mean, Emma, you do have lines to speak. Sally, you don't. So were you just so intuitively connected by the rehearsals, or, did you have little signs for one another? It's like, or did Dan just shoot as long as it needed? Did you have a lot of time? Because I think one of the problems on big professional shoots, it's like really quick. And this is a film that is so moving, and I thought you probably needed extra time for it to evolve. Am I right? Or how was it on the set?
I mean, I really loved working with Emma because I think we fed off of each other. I mean, hopefully that's how Emma feels as well. And yes, we were allowed to feel it and go with whatever direction it went. If it didn't quite work, then we'd do it again and see where else it would take us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what was so wonderful about this shoot, which is that Dan, the best thing that a director, that he said, and it hasn't actually happened ever before, is that he said at the end of us doing lots of takes, he would go, is there anything else that you want to explore? Is there anything else that you would like to try? And as an actor, that gives you permission to really explore and go, okay, well let's just see, that didn't quite feel quite right. I felt sometimes you have an instinct that you can't necessarily follow, but actually Dan gave you the chance to follow that instinct. So I'd be like, I had this instinct to do that in the last take, but I didn't want to because the camera and the lighting, but I would like to follow that. And so yeah, he gave us space, and also you're relaxed, and that's always going to get the best work. I felt like I could try anything, and it was it was completely natural between me and Sally, and that's the joy about working with somebody like Sally. But we're listening with everything. So even though I watched a film the other day just to remind myself, because it's been a few years now, and I was like, oh, it's really interesting how we could feel each other even though she didn't have any words. Yeah, it's about listening with the whole of your body, and I guess we were really in tune with that. It was really beautiful to work with Sally and Dan. Yeah,
thank you. And I have to say as well that I purposely asked Sally to recommend an actor she'd worked with before, because I knew we were not going to have a huge amount of time, and we needed the relationship between the two women to be very intimate. So I needed that shorthand. I needed people who already knew each other, to get, because we didn't have the money for lots of rehearsals. We had money to do one weekend to try stuff out. So that was sort of part of it. And also I have to say that both Sally and Emma and all the actors were really patient with me, because I was learning as I went. So I was making mistakes all over the place, but they were very patient with me, and where they knew stuff professionally that they could bring to bear on what I was doing, they told me and they guided me, and I'm so grateful for that, because without that we wouldn't have a film. So thank you.
It's a real collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I was just wondering, are there any sort of like things that happened on the set that you'd like to share with the viewers that they won't see on the film, but you're like, oh, that day that happened, I wondered if there's any of those? Not bloopers exactly, but behind the scenes.
I think one is, it was a sort of accident. We didn't really mean it to happen, and I don't want to say too much because it'll give too much away. But there is a scene in a church where Sally has to be absolutely shattered. Basically, I mean, that's the state that she's in. And it just turned out, although we carefully planned out the shoot for the days and the number of days that people were available, and we purposely planned in that we wouldn't do more than 4 days without a break. So we'd do like 3 or 4 days, then have a day break, and then do another 3 or 4 days and have a break, to try and split it up a bit. Sally got an advert commission right in the middle of the first block. So by the time we did that church shoot, I think that was your 8th day of working or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it was, yes.
You were absolutely shattered, and it was our longest day, and she was having to put up with me sort of saying, oh, well, can you do this now, can you do that now? And you were very patient with me, Sally, but that sort of weariness and tiredness, it's real. She really was that tired and shattered, but it's absolutely right for that scene. So there's a sort of an example of where you can't plan stuff and it comes out really well. And there was so much of that on this film where it shouldn't have worked. It just should not have worked. There were so many things that could have gone wrong, and yet it went so right. So, you know.
Well, I'm a great believer in if you're doing the right thing, the universe usually complies.
Yeah,
And
I think there's some truth to that.
I was wondering then, do any of you have a particular, if somebody is watching this and they haven't seen your film yet, and is there something you'd like them to just consider, before they go? Like, is it something that you would tempt them to watch it by? Because for me, I would say to the viewers, it's a really profound and moving journey, and that do not miss it. It's going to be on at 18:55. I'll do the promo now. 18:55 on the 13th of June. That's UK time. So if anybody else, if you've got anything else that you think is important to communicate to the viewers, please do.
Well, I think if you want to see something that is truly trying to show how intense life can be, and how it's not just about the here and now, that we are actually much more than that, something that reflects something much bigger than us, then I think that would be a draw. If you want to see something that's trying to meditate on what life is, why are we all here, that sort of thing, then yeah, this could be the film for you.
And actually, I just had a thought, maybe because we've all been shut away, some of us on our own, some people just with one other person, for so long, maybe this is the right time to actually watch it, because loads of people have had loads of time to think about who they are, what they want to do in their life, about the people that they've lost, about the future, what is going to happen to us in the future. Maybe this is a poetic way of looking at their own thoughts in some way. Probably doesn't make any sense what I've just said.
No, I think it's spot on. I was going to say that the lockdown has given a lot of people to think, time to think about things. I agree.
And I think there's also, the film is about loss and grief, but there's also a sort of collective grief that we're all experiencing, because the way of life that we had is not the way of life that we are probably going to have going forwards. And I mean, I don't know. I think the one thing that I would say about what this film really, what it feels to me and what I feel from my own experience with grief, is that if somebody in your life is grieving, or somebody that you don't need to fix them. Just being there for them in silence is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I agree. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining the Ramsgate International Film and Television Festival. I hope to see you here in person another time. Yes, again, it's on Saturday, 13th of June, 18:55. That's UK time. And I'll say goodbye to everybody for now, and see you another time. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.